Hey there, folks. Welcome to another edition of Stranger in a Southern Land. I, of course, am your host, Jake Manning. Today in the program, I speak with nationally touring comedian Forrest Shaw. Me and Forrest sit down and have an intelligent and very funny conversation. But I also should let you know that this podcast is kind of the catalyst for some of the good podcasts that I got coming your way very soon. Me and Forrest, we sit down and we talk a lot about success. How do you define it? How do you gain it? How do you obtain it? How do you keep it? And Forrest is in direct contact with some very driven individuals. He's a close friend of Jim Jeffries, and he talks a lot about the things that Jim has to do to be that successful. And then that makes Forrest kind of look at himself and look at the things he's not doing, the things he should be doing, and then also look at the things that he did to get to where he's at today. And it's really got me thinking about a lot of things, for me and what I should be doing. And it's really inspired me, and this is a very inspired podcast, and I feel very fortunate that I had this conversation with Forrest Shaw, and I feel like it's made a lot of my podcasts better, and basically you, the listeners, will be benefiting from basically what came out of this podcast, and hopefully it benefits you in the things that you're doing and the things that you're creating. So I highly recommend this podcast and listen to it. It's quite inspirational and gets you thinking about some things, and just makes you very driven and very focused on the things that you want to be doing. So anyways, more about this podcast. I should let you know that it is sponsored by Monstrous Comedy Wednesdays, which is hosted by former Stranger in a Southern Land guest Nick Alexander. Nick Alexander is bringing nationally touring comedians, much like Forrest Shaw, to Tremont Music Hall every Wednesday until they close, which is coming up very soon. So you're running out of opportunities to come and check out nationally touring comedians at Tremont Music Hall. So don't waste another second. Don't waste another day. Don't waste another Wednesday, to be more exact, because it's running out of time. Tremont will be closing its doors for the last time very soon. So make sure you come out and support Monstrous Comedy Wednesdays. And for more information, make sure you log on to TremontMusicHall.com. Now let me give you some of my dates that will be coming up. I've got a couple of them here. Not too many before the end of the year, but I'm going to give you what I got so far. This Friday, I will be performing improv at the Charlotte Comedy Theater at the NC Music Factory, and you can get more information about that show at charlottecomedytheater.com. And then this Saturday, December the 12th, I will be at West Virginia Championship Wrestling in Glendale, West Virginia at Liberty High School. And then next Saturday, I'll be with PWX in Hickory, North Carolina. And for more information about that show, make sure you log on to pwxpro.com. I might squeeze in another show somewhere in there. It might be another comedy show, maybe another wrestling show. And if I do, make sure you follow me on social media and hear about it, because it's very easy to follow me on social media. You can just follow me on Twitter at ManScoutManning and on Instagram at ManScoutManning. If you have a question about the podcast, make sure you email me at jake@sslshow.com. Or if you want to book me for an upcoming wrestling event, make sure you email me at manscoutmanning@yahoo.com. Anyways, without further ado, let's jump into this wonderful podcast. This podcast that's been a catalyst for me and got me driven and focused on the things that I want to do, but I hope you do the same after listening to this thing. So let's jump into this wonderful conversation with Forrest Shaw here on Stranger in a Southern Land. Folks, I'm sitting here with Forrest Shaw. Thank you very much for joining me today here on Stranger in a Southern Land.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So we're here at Tremont Music Hall before a big event for Tremont Monstrous Comedy Wednesdays. Yeah. I appreciate you taking
a lot of ambience here.
Yeah, well, this room, they held Insane Clown Posse concert, so that's why there's...
just recently?
Yes, I think this past Saturday.
Okay, yeah.
That's why there's the confetti stuck to the walls.
I see that. I see all the confetti everywhere. I thought that was just something...
No.
I don't know. Looks like we're about to shoot an ISIS video or something in here. I did notice the confetti, though. I didn't know.
The ISIS video is after this. It's the tail end. It's the tail end portion of my program. But anyways, like I said, my program is Stranger in a Southern Land. We were just talking about it before. And, I like to talk to interesting people that have some sort of connection to the Southeast. And you obviously have that by growing up in Florida.
Yeah.
Can you tell me what that was like?
Well... This might throw a wrench in your thing. It's Miami, so I don't know if that's technically considered the South. It's
Southeast.
Geographically, it's South. Yeah,
yes,
so
Southeast.
I enjoyed it. I grew up in Florida. I went to all the way through high school there. I went to college in Central New York, but then went back to Florida and worked there as a marine biologist for over a decade. And then,
Well, why marine biologist? Of all the things you could be, like, what made you interested? I know you're close
I
to
always
water.
wanted to do that. Yeah, that's what I wanted to do since I was. Look, if you took a survey of kids, 12, 13, 15-year-old kids, I think a lot of them want to become marine biologists, but then they realize they have to study, chemistry and biology. I think they just like the idea of playing with animals and getting paid for it, or dolphins or something. But that was just something. I was always on the water growing up. I was always on boats. I was always trying to work on the water and snorkeling and scuba diving, and it was just like I was really into the water. My family was too. So I just thought, hey, this is what I want to do. I want to work on the water the rest of my life, studying stuff. I've always had a very kind of scientific mind, so that was what drew me to that. And then just went to school, studied. I just got a degree in biology and environmental science. Went back home, and then I worked for Miami-Dade County. I had various jobs. I worked at a dolphin swim facility. I worked the National Audubon Society, giving field trips, environmental education.
Well, what type of
field trips
jobs
to
did you do
kids.
there, other than just play with animals?
No, my main job was I worked for Miami-Dade County.
Yeah.
For this, it's called Department of Environmental Resources Management, or DERM for short. And it was the environmental department for Miami-Dade County. And I worked there for about 12 years. So that was the bulk of my career as a biologist.
Was it basically just monitoring, aquatic life?
Yeah, it was a lot of different things. I did a lot of water quality testing of Biscayne Bay, which is the main body of water there in South Florida, and all of its tributaries leading back all the way to the Everglades. Seagrass monitoring, counting seagrass, but with the broader, it was more like we were. I don't want to say mapping, because we were doing that to some degree too, but let's just say we were studying seagrass, or we were monitoring that. Also coral reefs, fishes, anything that was basically, we worked for the county. So anything that could be affected by practices that were going on by businesses or the residents there, or any, let's say they wanted to, any projects, they always constantly wanted to re-nurse the beach there with sand, because it would go away. And that's what happens. The tides come in, currents, storms, and it takes the sand away. Well, that's not good for tourism.
Yeah, because if there's no beach, there's nothing to show up.
People don't want to go there. So they would basically vacuum all the sand a couple miles offshore in between the reef tracks, put it on barges, and then they would pump it through a pipe to the beach, and they'd respread the sand there. And while they were doing that, our department, and specifically my section, would monitor those activities to make sure that they weren't damaging the coral reefs, that they weren't damaging any of the habitat, that they weren't messing things up while they were trying to give German tourists sand. So
anything nefarious going on that you get caught?
Oh, you mean? I mean, there's one time a pipe broke that they were shooting sand in, and it destroyed a whole bunch of habitat, and so they had to mitigate it. I mean, there was nothing that interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, there's always shady stuff. Yeah.
Is that payoffs? Hey, can you turn the blind eye to this? Or
no, everyone thinks it's so funny when people talk about conspiracy theories and the government and this. I mean, I worked for the county government, but I worked in conjunction with the state and federal government all the time. And I'm not saying nothing illegal goes on in this with certain people, because of course it does. That comes out all the time in the news, not necessarily in the departments I worked in, but in in the government in general. But these high-level conspiracies that the government's keeping, I'm like, it's just a bunch of regular people that don't want to be working either, working for the government. There's no way that they're like, I just got a flu shot yesterday or 2 days ago.
Yeah.
At CVS. And you ever get the flu? You ever get a flu shot?
No.
Why not? Why not? You're just against it?
A little bit. I'm a little concerned of the fact that we're building up immunities to getting sick. You know what I'm saying? If I skipped it 1 year, all of a sudden I'll get super sick. Sicker than I would before.
No, because that's not how it works.
Okay.
Because the flu.
Obviously, I'm very uneducated.
The flu shot is different every year.
Okay.
The flu shot is based on that season's. The primary virus that they're seeing, because the flu mutates every year. It's not the same flu whether you get the shot or not. So they study what what version of the flu is most prevalent, that's getting the most people sick, and that's how they make the vaccine. And basically, it helps your bodies build up antibodies to that specific flu vaccine. So sometimes they can get it wrong, and they say, okay, you got a different flu, so you're gonna get sick anyways, or that wasn't the right one, or it's not effective. Most of the time they get it right, but so it's different every year. So I travel a lot, and so I used to get sick all the time, getting on planes and just being around people, shaking people's hands after shows. And since I get the flu shot every year, I've considerably cut down how often I'm sick, if at all. But my whole point of telling this is, since I don't have good insurance, I was getting it at CVS. So I'm getting an injection on those chairs you wait for to get your medication from like just in the open. Like I'm just getting it's just pretty ghetto. And this guy's like sitting next to me. He goes, hey, like as I'm getting the shot, he goes, hey, the government, that's how they track people. This is one of the ways is you get the flu vaccine. And then he said that there's a tiny, super tiny chip that could go through the eye of a needle or like a hole of a needle, and it goes in your body, and then they can track you. This guy said this to me. I was like, what?
I don't think the government's that competent.
You just used your credit card right now. Like it's way more effective at tracking you than
that's the chip that you're carrying around that they can track you with.
There's the guy. What's his name? Elon Musk couldn't even invent a chip that's like he's like people are just more. So I just got off track. But the whole government conspiracy thing. I'm not saying that the CIA doesn't do some weird shit. Like I watch Homeland, and I believe that a lot of that's probably accurate and stuff. I'm not saying that there's not shady stuff and weird stuff going on, but the whole like we didn't land on the moon business. Come on, we didn't land on the moon. What the whatever. So
well, on that sidetrack, you sold me on flu shots because I feel like I'm sick the entire winter because I do pro wrestling and I got the same situation. Not only am I shaking guys' hands, I'm wrestling around with other people that have
exchanging fluids,
all kinds of stuff,
sweat and blood and all sorts. Yeah, I mean, look, I don't get any kickbacks from the flu. I get it every year, and it seems to be effective. It's very effective, and the dose is based on your age too. So they give you a higher dose. You're the healthier person in your prime versus someone that's 89. They're not going to give you the same dose but it's not something that builds up. It's not the same by shot every year. So we're learning stuff here.
Well, obviously. The fact that they've actually put more work into it actually makes me consider. Because before it was like, oh, yeah, this will prevent you. Oh, well, we're going to give you something stronger.
Yeah. And it doesn't guarantee you're not going to get it.
Well, yeah.
But if you do, and sometimes you'll still get sick, but it'll be vastly like reduced the amount of time you're sick and stuff. I'm for it. But I know there's a lot of people against it. I'm sure there's like anti-vacciners and stuff, vaccinators, all that stuff too. But the whole conspiracy, that guy I just laughed at him. I was like, first of all, don't talk to me while I'm getting a shot. Yeah. I don't even know you. But
that's a lot of faith in our government, okay? They can pull that off.
I was like, there's so much disorganization and apathy within the government workforce that, most of these conspiracies, the 9/11 was an inside job, even all those ones, the Boston Marathon bomber, they said it wasn't real. None of those people got injured. It's like, wait,
say that the person with one leg.
Like, because you're going to increase the money that goes towards terror. Shut up. Just really, like we're not going to have money set aside for that anyways. But I don't know how I got off topic. But Florida, right?
We're back. We'll bring it back.
Yeah. Yes. So I worked down there as a biologist for the high profile part of my job that would be the reason people would get into marine biology is I worked with manatees a lot. Manatee protection, anything to do with manatees in South Florida. I was like the point person for Miami-Dade County, and so did surveys. Sometimes when they died, we'd help the state try and determine why they died or get the carcass onto a trailer so they could take it to a proper lab, and any sort of stranding or entrapment issues and trying to prevent them from getting crushed and locked. But, I got to see them and swim with them and be around them. It was cool. So that was cool. But then eventually I just got tired of sitting at a desk because I wasn't on a boat anymore. I was at a desk doing grant proposals and going to meetings and talking instead of being on a boat and scuba diving and doing cool shit. And I had started doing comedy around that time too and started getting really fat. And That was it. That was the impetus for me to stop.
Was that? I was just like, oh, I'm fat. Might as well do comedy. Is that? Was that?
No, I
Check.
that sentence wasn't organized properly. I mean, like I was sitting at a desk getting fat and doing, I wasn't like, yeah. If you want to get in the comedy and be successful, you either have to be really fat or really skinny. Everybody knows that.
Yeah.
So you can't be right in the middle.
Okay.
So.
Well, how'd you get into comedy? Like, what gave you the drive? Like, I want to get on stage.
I mean, I always wanted to do it. I just started doing. It's like, I just didn't want to regret when I got older things that I should have done or said that I really liked. My whole life I was like, I'm gonna do stand-up comedy.
Well, when did you? How old were you when you first?
Old. I'm old now. So I was like, when I started, I was 31, I guess.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Life experiences. That's what you need for comedy. But also, the industry doesn't really want to do anything to do with you after the age of 28. So, well, if you're a guy, it's okay. Maybe all the way up to 40. But if you're a woman, if you're over the age of 26, you're washed up. So you might not want to get into this. These are all jokes. All right. So, yeah, I literally had looked at people in my life, specifically my grandfather and people that had like lived their life to its really the fullest, to use some weird cliche, but I mean,
no, that's the same thing with me. My grandfather did just about it. He played for basketball for Iowa State. He was part of their conference championship team. Did everything he wanted to do. Yeah. I just appreciate you understanding the Cyclones.
Yeah, big sports guy.
Yeah, but yeah, that was just one of those things. Is just live it to the fullest. Like not a lot of people do that.
And then you don't want to get older and be regretful. Like, oh, I was gonna do that, and I didn't want to say I was going to do that to a couple things, and comedy was one of them. So I did it, and, it was terrible. The first time was actually better than I thought, but then I think the first couple times you do much better than you thought, so you're like, I can do this, and then it just is it's pretty rough for a while. A lot of inconsistencies, you like, you have a great set, and then you have 3 bad ones. And then just kind of stuck with it, started kind of figuring it out, and just like anything else, I think once you've been doing it around maybe 5 years, give it a go, you kind of start to feel like, okay, I think I could do this. Have an idea.
Was there a moment or was there an instance?
No, I mean, people start giving you money for it. You're like, I'm going to keep doing this, even if you shouldn't be getting it.
This is a good part-time job,
no, that was definitely. I mean, I would work my day job as a biologist on the weekends. I'd work as a comic, and I had like all this extra income too. Yeah, I'd fly around for the weekend, drive somewhere to get some. It's kind of cool. But it's also like the adventure of it. That's really the cool part. One of the cool parts of being a comic. It's cool. It's cool, a blessing and a curse, as I say. Like, doing the road is very interesting. To go to, like I just told you, I'm going to Wilmington, North Carolina this weekend. Never been there. Heard it's a cool town, a cool area. Yeah, so that's cool. I get to go there. I get to probably get to eat at some. I always try to find a restaurant that's local there. Eat something I've never eaten. Go see some sort of site that's there. Meet the people. See the topography, the architecture, everything. I just found out I'm going to in January. I'm going to Europe. I went to Europe once when I was a kid to visit my dad. He's in the military when I was 12. That doesn't count. I was 12. No one gives it. I was obsessed that they had gummy bears. That was like my big thing about Germany. But I'm going to, I literally just found I'm going to Austria, to the Alps, to do this thing called the Altitude Comedy Festival. Then from there, I'm going to Amsterdam, Oslo, Stockholm, and then London for 2 weeks. Great Britain, basically. Because of comedy. Like, that's awesome. It's also a curse, too, because that sounds great. But I've also did a bunch of gigs, like, in West Virginia coal mining towns and like Northwest Tennessee where you're just on the road. Like, what am I doing? This is terrible, But that was part of the allure of it. Was I was like, I'm stuck at this desk, getting fat, like I said, just doing not what I want to do anymore. And now I'm traveling, and all of a sudden on the weekend I'm in whatever, Madison, Wisconsin or something, which is a really cool town, So that was really part. And then I think there wasn't just a moment. I don't know if anyone has like a moment that's kind of like movie-like, where you're just like, and then I knew I was gonna.
Well, maybe that like maybe I don't suck as bad as I think, or maybe this.
Either that constantly happens. Yeah. I think there's a constantly levels and plateaus, and you keep hitting that and stuff, and at some point you become consistent enough where you're like, okay, I'm good at this. I'm not saying I'm the best comic, but I'm like, okay, I know I can go up and I can I've done this type of crowd and this type of crowd and this venue and here and there and whatever, and you know, at least get through it instead of just you know when you first start out, you're just like everything's terrifying. No fun, this job. But yeah, so Florida, that's I guess technically southern.
I claim the southeast.
Where are you from?
Iowa originally.
Oh yeah, that's Iowa State. That would make sense. You'd have, yeah. Yeah, Florida gets. I mean, northern Florida. First of all, it's definitely the South.
Oh yeah.
You get all the way down to Orlando-ish, and I mean, hey, if you ever go to Tampa, where the intersection of I-4 and I-75, which is basically the crossroads, the entrance to Tampa Bay, like Tampa, the city, there's a giant. I don't know. I want to say 200-foot flagpole that has a gigantic. What do you call it? The flag everyone's upset about. Why? The Confederate flag. Yeah. This is Tampa. You would think it's like this, really, and it's like a bass boat shop that somebody owns, and they just want I mean, they must have spent thousands of dollars on this flagpole. It's like at the base, it's probably like 3 feet thick and stuff. And you're just like, oh yeah, we're in the South. It's Florida, you know.
Yeah, like you get outside some of those metropolitan areas, and it looks like middle of nowhere, Georgia.
This is in Tampa, though. This is like a metropolitan. Yeah, I mean, obviously in the sticks of all those. I mean, you go in the Panhandle and
like
Miami,
like a Brandon, Florida, or a Sanford, Florida.
But I tell you what, the southern part of Miami, where all the ag fields are and stuff, and Homestead and the Redlands and stuff, it's back to like southern, you know. And the Keys is like beautiful kind of paradise there, but it's still kind of got a southern feel to it in some aspects. I mean, it's obvious there's a lot more Latin influence in southern Florida, and it's a lot more cosmopolitan, but you know, it's still Florida's definitely the South. Florida's like the punching bag for the whole country.
Yeah, it really.
I don't even know how that started. Like you're telling me that if I wanted to poke around, I couldn't find just as many, fucked up stories in North Carolina, or like, I mean, come on.
There's a lot. South Carolina is a good punching bag as well that people are not utilizing.
I know that we have. First of all, it's warm all year long in Florida, so there's a lot more opportunity for people to be naked and masturbating on something, which is a lot of those stories, And then, I just think that we have better journalists. I think that's part of the deal. It's like
they're on top of it when something crazy
reporting
happens.
on the stories that people want to hear. People want to hear about the guy that tied up the alligator and had sex with it in his bathtub for 2 weeks because it tried to bite his hand off. That's interesting. No one wants to hear about the economy or some sort of earthquake that happened in Venezuela. I don't know. Did they have earthquakes in Venezuela? Chile. But, we're definitely the punching bag. So, I don't know how that happened. But then I think it's just one of those things, once it starts happening, it snowballs.
It's fun to pile
Now it's just
on.
like, Florida, man, like we got it. A lot of drugs, it's very warm. Everybody moves there, but they have no real attachment to it. And loose bankruptcy laws and gun laws, and I guess it's a good mixture. Because in the winter, shit calms down. It gets cold here, right? There's nobody running around outside doing weird shit. And, I don't know.
It's also a big training ground for wrestlers as well that can be idiots as well as Florida.
This area is?
No, in Florida it is.
In Florida. You said you're a professional wrestler.
Yes.
Wow. What's your name as a wrestler?
I am the Man Scout Jake Manning, like in Cub Scout, Boy Scout,
Oh,
Man
okay.
Scout. So,
Yeah.
So I was an Eagle Scout growing up.
Oh, okay.
And I'm independent, so I feel you on those, West Virginia towns that you hate performing in, and
you look like a wrestler now. Like that. You have the look. So
I appreciate
you're
that.
in shape, first of all, so that's helpful. Are there any out of shape like professional wrestlers?
A couple of them, yeah.
Well,
And that's
are
the
they
deal.
just big, like really big?
They're big. Or
You couldn't be like my size and just be like,
you can be, but like you can't be a good one.
you're like out of breath after the.
I've wrestled a few of those guys, and usually the best way to do is they promote their own shows, and and book guys like me to make them look good. So.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Wow. So you travel all over the country, or it's a big southeast?
Yeah, I was in California last year. I was just in Illinois a few weeks ago.
Yeah, there's some show that there's some event that my friends went to in LA. What was it called? It had a great name.
Was it Pro Wrestling Gorilla?
Yeah, that was it.
Yes, they are.
Correct.
You really need to go in and check out their shows.
I heard it was awesome. My friends are like, you have to go to this, but it's hard to get tickets, I think.
The best wrestlers in the world are performing there. They flew
It's
in.
like a VFW, right, that they convert into this. But I heard it's really hard to get tickets. I heard it's like you have to go online right when the event comes out.
They can only fit like probably less than 200 people in there, but they're flying people in from Europe. Like they just had 6 guys from Europe and 3 guys from Mexico.
And how do you go on Pro Wrestling Gorilla, like the website, and then you got to like know the event's coming up and then like buy the tickets? Yeah, I'm gonna do it. Thank you for reminding me of the name. I knew it was like not a weird name, but a gorilla wasn't there. Yeah,
like they just had their battle.
My friend told me there's like giant beers too. Like like you go there, you get the tickets, and it's like the action's right on top of you. Like people are flying like out of the ring next to you, and so it's like you're right on top of there's not a bad seat. And he just kept talking about these giant beers, and then they have these like 48 ounce, something like that.
Yeah, like they've got a bar in there. They make a ton of money at the bar. So they're well stocked for that. So it's a great time. You really need to go.
I'm going to it. I'm glad you reminded me of the name. So.
Okay. Well, you sold me the flu shot. I sold you on PWG. So
that's some old man shit. I was like, everybody get your flu shot. Also, be careful when you're jaywalking. This time of year, people are in a rush, holiday season and such. I got old man tips for you.
There you go. You got all kinds of them. But anyways, like when you started doing comedy and things started to rolling for you, like what were like some of the bigger steps that you took? Like, obviously you kind of went around Florida a little bit. Like, when did you start like branching past Florida? When did that start happening for you?
I don't remember how many years in it was, but it was just a progression where, do as much sets as I could within driving distance of my house during the week, and then I started work. There's a ton of clubs in Florida. Luckily, they're not all great, but when I say they're not all great, I mean I appreciate all of them for what they made me into as a comic. But sometimes you're doing some shitty gigs, and some other good ones too. Like for instance, there was and these are not it wasn't like shitty gigs necessarily, but there was this chain Bonkers that's still down there. And they had like 4 rooms in Orlando, 1 in Daytona, 1 in Ocala, and they had a couple other random ones. And it's like I started working for them and traveling around the state, and I would be every weekend I'd be doing gigs for them, And that really helped me to get to be a better comic because I was stretching out. I was doing 25 minutes, and eventually I was headlining for them. Excuse me. And they're tough rooms sometimes. Some of them were great rooms, some of them were tough. So you really had to, be funny. So it was like, but it also was, for me, was a challenge because I was like, I wanted to be funny, but I didn't want to like be funny. Like these people sometimes wanted a certain type of comedy, let's say. I was like, I'm not going to just
it's kind of club, like
just kind of maybe sometimes more like if you went in there and you were hacky, you'd probably do well. But I didn't want to do that.
Your comedy's very smart. Like you got to be,
I wanted to do what I wanted to do, but still in this place that is a line dancing / hip hop club in Ocala, which is actually a thing that. So that was a challenge, and it made me better, I think. But so I started doing that, and then I started branching out in the Southeast. Like Atlanta was the first place I flew to. I did the Punchline. I remember doing that first flight. Like I'm on an airplane going to do comedy. I've made it. And then from there, I just started really branching out in the Southeast. I did a few festivals here and there, and then that gets you more bookings. And then I started going all the way out to California. It just kind of happens, And then luckily, I was one of the things that I benefited from was I got to work a lot at the Improvs in South Florida, and I got to meet the national touring headliners that were coming through there, and also the middle acts. And the middle acts were the next wave of people that are now doing well, and also some of these headliners kind of took me under their wing, did road work with them, even till this day. I mean, I still open for Jim Jeffries around the country. I met him through the Improvs down there. I'm one of his openers, and so I do about like 30 dates a year with him in theaters. It's like that's how I'm going to Europe. So it's awesome, It's like so that a lot of it's like luck. I mean, obviously everyone's like, well, you had to be funny, and these people like you. Sure, yeah, but there's still an element of luck. Like you just happened to be at work that weekend, they saw you, they liked you. Then maybe a text message was received one day, and then they reminded.
They just happened to meet a guy on that day.
Yeah, there's no linear way. I mean, I have plenty of friends that I started with that are just as funny or funnier than me, and they just haven't had some of the breaks that I've had. So it's There's not always like, hey, it's not always like you do this, this, then this, and then you go here and you do this. There's nothing linear about it, you know. It's like it's just right. Keep getting up, do this. Eventually, move out of whatever city you're from and go to New York or L.A. You just got to do that if you think you're gonna, you know, you have to. I mean, there's definitely cases of. I mean, I can think of a group of comics out of Denver, and their name is Grolix. They're like but they have a show coming out on IFC right now, and they didn't necessarily completely move to LA, but those examples are few and far in between. I mean, that's you know, so you just kind of have to keep grinding and figure out whatever path's right for you and stuff. And it's not the same for anyone. And I'm by no means, look, I got a long ways to go. I'm still struggling, you know, and I've done a lot of things that a lot of comics haven't done, but I'm still just like, I wake up like, oh shit, what am I going to do? I'm going to be old before I know it, and I still have to do this, and that in order so I'm not, you know, sharing my cat's food with her when I get older. If she's still alive, she's probably going to die soon. Very sad. Sorry, guys. Good times.
There you go.
Dead animals. That'll help your podcast.
Yeah, that'll lead us into some transitional material.
Yeah.
But no, like you. Yeah, it really seems like it's very similar. I was just talking to somebody about this recently. It's like as far as like pro wrestling, like I got a couple friends that are stuck in that position. And
yeah,
it's all a matter of luck. And if you just it's when you don't realize
they feel like they should be further along, or they don't know what they're doing. They're not bitter, but they just don't know what to do to.
Why isn't this person seeing this, and why is it? Because especially like, you know, most of us have done athletics. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If we score the most points, we win, you know.
Yeah.
You know, but it's not.
That doesn't matter. I mean, the people that are in charge that can change your life, they could just maybe you look like someone that they didn't like in high school, or maybe they just something you smelled weird one night when they saw you, or maybe it doesn't even, you know, and they don't necessarily even know what the hell they're doing either.
Yeah.
Like no one really knows what they're doing. I just want everybody to be clear on that. Like nobody in the world really knows what they're doing except maybe like an astrophysicist. That's like, even then, I feel like they're kind of bullshitting a lot of stuff. Because how are we going to know? Right? You can't fact check Neil deGrasse Tyson. I mean, that guy could just be lying to us about all that shit, like about black holes, you know? I mean, I guess, you know, what's his name could fact check him. What's the black hole guy's name? The fucking guy. Just saw the movie about him. The guy that has ALS.
Stephen Hawking.
Stephen Hawking. Holy shit. I'm really losing track. I'm getting old. I cannot remember names now. And Stephen Hawking is a big... but it's like, I feel like, especially in entertainment, especially in any sort of entertainment field, most people don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Like critics.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when's the last time you read a movie review and then didn't go to a movie because of the movie review? What the fuck? Why do we even have movie reviews? Like, do people really like read those and like, well, I'm not going to go see The Martian because it's like you're just going to see what you want to see. Movie critics, that's got to be the biggest scam they have going there. And same thing with music and stuff like. It's like I read stuff like I get like E Weekly or Rolling Stone, and I'll read through the stuff, but I'm never like, that guy did it for me. I'm not going to check out this band that I've loved forever's new album, you know?
Yeah.
Or whatever. It's silliness. And I think that translates in everything. Like people that are, you know, when I say people don't really know anything, I'm not, obviously there's like people that are agents, you know, like for big agency, like CAA or UTA or whatever. Like they've studied to be where they're at. I mean, most of them have gone to college and gotten degrees in management or different, you know, things, marketing or whatever, let's say. But so they have an idea, they know something, but for all the people that they always hit on, you know, there's all these people that they didn't hit on that they thought were good and then passed over somebody that might be good. And it's a lot of it's just luck and where you're at. And if the right person sees you, and sometimes some person, there might be a person that loves you, like, but you might not ever meet that person within the industry, let's say, you know, and they could have changed your life. Like it could be the person that's in charge of, you know, programming for NBC.
Yeah, well, they got fired the week.
Whatever, some guy that's high up there that's a content acquisition, never sees you in his whole life for whatever reason. But if he did, it would just been this thing where he would have identified you. And meanwhile, all these other people are seeing you like, because I've done like these competitions before in festivals, and where you see like the ratings. And I did this one particular festival, which is a great festival, but it was like a competition aspect, and they showed you the judges' scores, and this guy gave me all zeros, all zeros, and I just
Like
want to
not
tell
even
you,
a one for effort.
I want the set that I did was the same set I did on Conan, so I know it was like an okay, like
Yeah.
I'm not saying everybody has to like it, but zeros. So I was like, that guy just doesn't like me, you know, and and he was in the industry. I think he was with an agency. He was with one of the big agencies, and he just didn't like me, which is fine. That guy doesn't have to like me.
Yeah, because somebody else will like you. And do
I don't
like
expect everybody in the world to like me. Like when you're at a comedy club and there's 300 people in the audience, if you think all 300 people are going to laugh at you, you're insane. They're not. It's never going to happen, ever. The only way that's going to happen is if all 300 people, and if you had some level of fame and all those people came specifically to see you and they didn't bring any of their friends that didn't really know you, it was all people that really liked you, and then maybe you'll get all 300 to like one of your bits. So it's like you just can't get all the people to. So just, sometimes you can't get bitter. Especially like when I moved to LA, it was like you get there and you're like, well, why is that guy? It's the first thing you do when you get there, like, why is that guy getting a show? And it's not even about them being funny or not being funny. You just, you get, why does he get this and why? Who knows? He got drunk with some guy, the right guy one night or something. Or maybe just one of his jokes really fucking, touched the right spot in someone's brain. So I'm sure it translates to everything. Like you were talking about people that you know in the wrestling industry that are bitter and this and that. It's like, it's a brand of entertainment. They still have to see something that they want to be able to sell, that they want people to watch, to make a whatever product, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's I'm trying to explain that with people right now.
Yeah. Gotta brand yourself, everybody. All right, what you want to do is, let's say you want to be like, pretend you're like a cable guy. No, I'm just kidding. He's big in the South.
Anyways, for
confetti.
I know it's everywhere, but Forrest, comedians like.
Were we supposed to be being funny on this, by the way? I don't know if we're being funny.
We're supposed to be real.
Oh, okay.
We're having a conversation.
Oh, okay, good.
What they feel about it is their problem.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Shove it, audience.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Shove it, listeners. But
I like to look at them once in a while. Shove it.
Yeah. But your level, comedians like yourself that are touring the country, like I run into this problem a lot when I tell people that I wrestle, and they're like, "Oh, you're on TV, you're on WWE," and I'm like, "No." Then I have to explain.
Yeah, if you're not on TV, you're a loser.
Exactly, and you've had some opportunities as well. Like I said, you've been on Conan before. You've been on episodes of Legit and Animal Planet and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But for the most part, you're out there grinding and trying to get your name out there.
Sure.
Like what's a part of that hustle? What are the things that you have to do, like, social media wise, getting bookings?
Well, I'm sure that's probably one of my social media I'm not great at. So I think that right now, the people that are doing the best as stand-up comics, if you're not already established, there's a huge contingency of people that are very good on social media and getting in touch with people and then getting them to come out to shows, and that I'm poor at. I mean, I have everything in place and I try to do something, but I really need to. If I put more effort, it's one of those things where I'm like, I need to put more effort in this, and when I do, then I'm like, that's not working, but I'm not giving it enough time, type thing. But I think in the end, though, honestly, if you stand-up comedy, is you just have to be really funny, and you just have to get funnier, always, and better, and then eventually, you're gonna be undeniable. Now that doesn't mean you're gonna be, Louis C.K. or Bill Burr or Jim Jeffries or these are all people that I really admire and think are really funny. Obviously Jim. I mean, I tour with him and I'm very good friends with him, but they all work really hard. But you could be. I mean, what comics do you like?
You just listed off most of them.
Yeah, but I mean, somebody that's not that successful, but I still is like successful. You know what I'm saying? Like that's in the end, it's like you could still be a guy that goes on the road 35 weeks a year, and your peers really like you, and you're well known. You get some TV spots here and there, and whatever. And maybe you make like $180,000 a year. Yeah. There's a lot of those, not a lot, but there's that group of comics where you're like, oh well, that's great, But I think if you just kind of if you end up being funny enough to where you're consistent enough, And then once you get to that point, if you just keep trying to get funnier and funnier and just better and better, I think that you'll have a career at it, you know? Now, will you be super famous and this level and have whatever much money as you want? Maybe not. I mean, there's only a few people that get to do that. And who wants that sometimes, you know? I think it can be very difficult. But I just want to be in a different tax bracket at some point. I don't want to have to be at the rental car place after I've done a red-eye flight from L.A. to Raleigh-Durham and just be like, why are there stars next to my name on the rental car? That means your card was declined. This was what happened this morning. And I go, great. It's like I have this other one. I hope it works. And it does. Because for whatever reason, they take less money on the deposit. A lot of information for you guys. Get a flu shot. But, yeah, I just want to be a little bit more comfortable than where I'm at. But I think that is just, I can work harder than I work now. I'll tell you that. For instance, I will tell you, because I work with him a lot, Jim Jeffries works really, really hard. And I'm not saying other people don't work really hard and aren't as successful. Of course that happens. But I know by watching him that I don't work hard enough to have some of the things that I think I should have. And so every day I'll wake up and I'm like, okay, I got to do this. And if I catch myself slacking, then that's my goal right now. Work harder, be more productive, produce more things, write more, be funnier, you know? It's hard, though, because you're your own boss when you're a comic.
Yeah, you can.
And you can get by. There's comics that you've seen that they've been doing the same act for whatever. They're getting by, but I'm sure they want to blow their brains out in whatever hotel they're staying in. Because I try to change up my act as much as I can, and I still am like in hotels like, this is depressing. Insane Clown Passy's back. They've changed their style.
Obviously.
Yeah. All right. What does that mean?
I know.
Okay.
They were just testing the sound system.
Okay.
It's just one of those things they do. I think they forgot we were in here.
Yeah. Come on, Tremo.
But you just talk about, you're around Jim and you see how hard he works. Like, what it's like the big takeaway from him, like, not only just hard work. Like,
you got to be driven. If you want to be as successful as him or those other people I listed off, you have to have a drive that I don't say. I'm not saying I don't have it, but that's why when people sit around and are like, this guy does this, and that, it's like, yeah, you don't have that same drive those people have. Or Amy Schumer. There's not many people bigger than her, right? You know what I'm saying? The drive that those comics have, that motor to keep, it's so easy to be lazy. I'm a lazy person by nature. Everyone's lazy by nature. If you could just sit in a hammock and just eat, and people would bring you food, and who wouldn't want to do that, But you're not gonna, And comedy, it's really tough it's really tough because you're your own boss, and you can kind of get by just doing enough, And if you get a few things, you can kind of rest on those laurels and stuff. But it's like, right now where I'm at, it's like things have happened for me since I moved to LA, but it's like I need to do a lot more, because otherwise I'm just going to be old and bitter and stuff, I don't know if this is kind of abstract, but I feel like at some point you wake up and then you're like, all right, I have more of a drive. Like I took a nap today and I woke up and I was productive. And I could feel that, and I was like, oh, here's a little bit of that drive I'm talking about. I need to replicate this 24 hours a day now.
Yeah, he's like.
But then you're kind of like, do I want to do that? Like, this seems exhausting. I don't really care if I have a BMW ever, I have to keep my car. Yeah. So, but that's definitely the most successful people. I mean, who's the most successful wrestler of all time? The Rock, probably. If you look at his post-career, I'm saying,
Yeah, I would have to say that.
Who's more driven than that guy? That guy's a fucking maniac.
Oh, yeah.
He's awesome. And you want to be friends with him. Seems like a great dude. Yeah. Miami ties, by the way. Played at University of Miami.
Yes, he did.
But yeah, I think that's what separates. And then if you want to just look at somebody like Ryan Seacrest, that guy's a maniac too. I don't know if I want to be that driven, but if you want to be that successful, it's like, so people always look at people and be like, that guy's fucking no. It's like, really? Are you willing to do what that person does in their life? Probably not, And a lot of times people do it with comedy too. Like, that guy's a shitty comic because blah, blah, blah. Well, first of all, he's got an audience. Like, so you don't have that, no matter who it is, And he did all this work, or she did all this work, however you want to do it, It's like, it's very upsetting when people are dismissive like that. I can tell you that I'm probably right about where I should be for the amount of work I put in my career, if you want to be honest. But I'm working to make that different. Next year is going to be a banner year. You'll see.
Well, you're working on some things right now. You've got a podcast. What are some other things that you can plug right now, let people know to get in contact with you and know more about you?
Well, Forrest Shaw, 2 R's, FORRESTSHAW. That's like all my handles, my Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and my website's forrestshaw.net. I try to keep my dates updated and when I'm on the road and anything that will be coming up, like if I do any spots, like I'm trying to get back on TV in a couple of different capacities. A friend of mine, another comic, John Wynn, and I, he created it, but me and him co-wrote it, and we acted in it and everything. It was a web series we did called Labor Days. And when there's a website, labordays.tv, we did 7 episodes live action of that. Didn't get a lot of traction and won a couple of awards at some like web fests and stuff like that. But we're just finishing up 3 animated episodes of that. So we're going to try and say, hey, maybe the animated route will work. Maybe we can sell this. And at the very least, we'll have them. And that should be done in the next couple weeks or something. But if you follow me on Twitter or Instagram and that stuff, I will be posting that. And I would really love if people watch that and, let us know what they think. We worked really hard on it. The animator worked really hard, and John worked really hard. I helped write him and did the voiceover and kind of this. But, I'm a part of the project. So, yeah. So that's a cool thing that's coming up. And, look for me on other stuff. I hope to be on a couple different shows coming up. I have some show. It's like LA. You live there. I've got a million different things I'm pitching and trying to get done and stuff, but that's it's impossible. Just so you know, it's impossible to get a television show on the air. Like, it's so crazy because you watch it and you're just like, well, there's all this crap on TV. It must be easy. Nah, I don't know how that gets on there because the process is insanity. It goes back to what we said. You're just in a pitch meeting and some guy, just won a bunch of money that you're pitching to me and just won a bunch of money at a casino, or he's got the right mixture of caffeine and in his body or other drugs or whatever. And it's like, we're making this show. Yeah, all right. This is my shit idea. So, but yeah, just follow me on all that stuff. I think that'd be good.
All right. Is there anything else that I've neglected or glazed over you want to get out there into the world?
Oh, remember to spay and neuter your animals? Because Bob Barker's getting old. He doesn't tell people that anymore.
Yeah, I think he just fell down, so he might not be around too much longer.
Did he?
I thought I heard that on the news this morning. I think he fell down.
Oh dear, he's been around for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You may need to be the next pitch man for it.
I'll do it. Yeah, I don't have the platform he had, but if Drew Carey decides to give up that gig, I'll do that.
Right.
I don't really want to, but if someone said you could be the host of The Price is Right, I'll do it in 2 seconds.
Well, I thought just be the guy to tell everybody to spay and neuter your pets.
Yeah, but you gotta up it. See, this is the thing. Exactly. Driven. Come on. Exactly. I don't just want to tell people to spay and neuter pets. I want to be the host of The Price is Right. I don't, but you're not gonna give up that gig.
Yeah.
You got to at least earn $100 an episode for that, I would think, right?
Yeah,
it's a joke. Yeah, I think it's more than that.
Yeah, probably.
All right. Well, thanks for having me on here.
Well, thank you.
All right. Great.